Undertale is a game that has many themes: hope, mercy versus genocide, the consequences of your choices, and so on and so forth. But one theme that this game highlights a lot that I've yet to see people bring up more is the inability to move on. From each and every corner, there are small glimpses and personal reminders of a hope for the monsters to one day reach the surface and reclaim the freedom that they lost, to not being able to move on from the tragic death of loved ones or family members. And in my opinion, the character that highlights this theme in the best way possible is Asgore. Let's begin. Asgore is very multi-layered when it comes to pretty much all of his character, but one facet about him remains at the front and center: his inability to accept the reality of the situation in a healthy manner whatsoever. In Undertale, that's highlighted perfectly by the fact that his throne room isn't just covered in flowers, it's the place where Asriel and Kara's fused body turned into dust. It's the very same spot that they died in, and it's the origin of the yellow flowers that we see throughout the whole game, showing that the entire underground, both figuratively because of the flower beds that are almost everywhere, and literally because of the recital of Asriel's story in New Home, is unable to move on. But that is not all. Asgore's entire home isn't a normal home or anything of the sorts. It's literally a moment in the past. A moment that Asgore still desperately tries to cling onto. Asriel and Kara's room, the burnt butterscotch pie, the age-old t-shirts and trophies and photos, everything in New Home is just a moment that happened. The moment you meet Asgore, one thing comes clear to mind. The flowers that grew in the place that his children died most likely take the biggest amount of priority out of him, not even checking his back before he fully takes care of them while Frisk arrives. After that, all you can hear him say is pretty much him saying that he doesn't want to do this at all. He doesn't want to keep his promise because he's afraid. He's afraid of the responsibility. He's afraid of the consequences of his actions. He's afraid of the fact that things have to change, that things will never go back to normal. If you kill someone and spare Flower in a neutral run and go back to Asgore and spare him, he just says, "No, that's just a fantasy, isn't it? Young one, when I look at you, I'm reminded of the human that fell here long ago. You have the same feeling of hope in your eyes. There's an ancient prophecy among our people. One day, a savior will come from the heavens. I believe that one that was prophesied was you. Somewhere in the world outside, there must be a way to free us from our prison. It pains me to give you this responsibility, but please, take my soul and seek the truth. I'm sorry I couldn't give you a simple happy ending, but I believe your freedom is what my son, what Asriel, would have wanted." Asgore's character in Undertale tragically culminates in this suicide scene that most players don't even know about. He clings onto the past so egregiously here in an attempt to excuse his own actions. He even wrongfully recites the prophecy to excuse his own suicide, not to the player, but to himself, to his son, to his people. The people he's too afraid to do what he promised them for, the son that he can't let go of, and the life he ever so desperately wishes to come back. And yet, in a brief moment, he realizes that it's all just a fantasy, because there is no truth on the surface. Which brings me to... From what we see in Deltarune, Asgore is just as unable to move on from the past, but in a much less, how do I say it, depressing degree? Here it's played for laughs. Like, here in Deltarune it's less about the death of his children and the divorce, and it's more about the fall of his family and the divorce. Yeah, this is still just as depressing, but what I'm trying to get here is that Asgore in Deltarune is written in a way that parallels his Undertale counterpart nearly the same, but not completely. Some people perceive Asgore in Deltarune as pathetic and think that the reason as to why he lost his job as the head chief of the police is because he accidentally trucked over Des. Not only is that mischaracterization, it straight up goes against a lot of the narrative threads that Deltarune is trying to convey, especially around Asgore, with him wanting to protect everyone and still working with Kara while also having a great friendship with Rudy. You know, the two parents of the girl that he allegedly ran over. The things around this narrative that Deltarune is building up for in Chapter 5 are very ambiguous for a good reason. That being, it's going to most likely answer most of the mystery surrounding Asgore and also be the culmination of his Deltarune counterpart. Despite being presented as an oofy doofy fella in Deltarune, the way Asgore is written still remains true to his Undertale counterpart. But on a slightly less I'm suicidal and I crave death note, and more of a I just wish things would go back to what I used to think was normal kind of note. Which leads me back to the culmination of his character. Asgore isn't going to die in Chapter 5, because that would kinda go against the themes that Deltarune is trying to make, one of them being that it parallels Undertale, so having the choice to actually spare Asgore for a change would be very fitting. Or maybe it will be the breaking point in the Snowgrave route where we finally push Chris off the edge the second we attempt to kill their dad. Who knows really, I'm not Tricky Tony after all. Asgore's character is going to be front and center when Chapter 5 comes out, and I couldn't be any happier about that. He's my favorite character as you couldn't tell, and I can't wait for him to get his flowers. But with that, we've reached the end of today's analysis. This has been Duka, and I hope you have a good one.